All right. All right, virtually. Thank you so much for coming and joining us for another episode. We have today Will Mannon, the course director of Forte Academy. Super excited for you to be chatting with us today. You are now going to be a co-host to Reshaping Education podcast. So officially welcome to the virtually team. Super excited to have you. So let's just jump right on in. What really inspired you to get started in the online education space?
Yeah, so Danielle, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I was working at a large tech company. I started in San Francisco, then was down in Los Angeles at a new office. The work was fine. I liked it well enough, but I was looking for more of a challenge, wanting to learn more things. So I actually took an online course through UCLA. It was a UCLA extension course. And I got to say the quality was not very good. It was just all asynchronous and just wasn't a great experience. So I started looking for what else was out there. And I found this course called Rite of Passage, which was a online writing course. And I took the first cohort and enjoyed it, took the companion course, Building a Second Brain, enjoyed that too. And so it was really this impulse just to be learning and challenging myself outside of work. And after taking those courses, I just sent an email to one of the founders of the writing course, David Burrell, with a couple of suggestions about how to improve the course. And then sort of things took off from there and started working part-time. But that was the original idea. Was I had free time outside of my job. I was looking to learn. I was looking to write, really. And these, what we now call cohort-based courses, seem to be the best entry point after not having a lot of success with the UCLA class.
What do you think about the UCLA class that didn't make it as efficient or didn't help you on your journey?
There was no live component. That's the biggest thing. There's no question, right? So you had, it was called Flash Prose. You're writing short nonfiction and fiction stories. So it was great. I was writing. That felt good. You would share them on a forum and other people would comment on your pieces. The teacher was a bit checked out. She was writing a book, but she'd occasionally comment on your stuff too. So you kind of got to know people a little, but we were just profile pictures to each other, right? Maybe a bio, but there was no, I never met anyone like we're talking right now over Zoom. There's no component that was live. And I think that was just far and away the biggest thing that was lacking. There's such a lack of connection there, lack of buy-in, and lack of results, frankly. Yeah.
Now that you are a course director for Forte Academy, what does a day in your life look like? I'm sure everyone wants to know the behind the scenes of what that is. And what do you do? What do you do also?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm responsible for student experience, making sure we deliver an exceptional experience for all of our students in both courses. I started out working both. I was the only employee for a while, so I was doing experience and operations. We brought somebody on, Monica, one of our former students, who's phenomenal. She's taking on more of the work on the operations side. But my typical day completely depends on where we are in the cycle. So we are very sort of time-driven, bound by these cycles of when we have our courses. So our courses are 5 weeks, right, delivered live over Zoom. And so there's sort of a 13-week period of how you deliver a course, but it's roughly speaking 6 weeks. And you're doing some initial planning way in advance, but there's really a 6 weeks where you're sort of gearing up the whole machine to run the course. That's both launching the marketing engine and also preparing the materials and the student experience and the curriculum for students. So it's about a 6-week process. Then the course is sold and it starts, and it's about 5 weeks to run the course. And then there's about 2 weeks to sort of land the plane. So it's a 13-week cycle. And so depending where we are in that cycle, I could be working with the instructor to plan the changes to the curriculum. I could be designing new components, new groups of the student experience. I might be meeting with our mentors and helping train the mentors, get them ready. During cohort, it's a bit crazy when we first start out. We got a ton of students who all need a lot of things. So we're helping coordinate with different emails, different communication, giving them the assignments and setting up the community. And then, once you hit your stride about week 2 or week 3, things calm down a bit. We run the course and then kind of wrap up. So yeah, a lot of different activities depending where we are, but it really comes down to a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of writing, and a lot of sort of systems and design thinking about how to design a great course experience for our students.
So why do you think that the student experience is something that is important when it comes to creating a course? I think a lot of course creators, they may overthink it or they might not be thinking of it at all. So what would you say to those who haven't really prioritized the student experience yet?
I think great online courses nowadays are an experience where it's actually there's that live component, there's that community component, right? Ish and I, in fact, have talked about the education 1.0, say 10 years ago. You had things like MOOCs and courses on Udemy or Skillshare. Those were largely sort of a single player thing where you are just getting information. It's just like transmission of information. There's not a lot of experience there. It's just sort of like consuming information. But nowadays, you have these different ingredients of a course, right? You have the course materials, the course curriculum, that's one component. But you also have the live calls. You have this community that is just ongoing and living throughout the entire course duration. And so you're experiencing a lot more as a student than just information transmission. As course director, though, we need to make sure that all of those components are sort of personalized to a given student, making sure it's supporting their learning journey, and just making sure that there's not friction. Like we have this line we love to say, we want students to be challenged but never confused, right? The whole point of a course is you challenge yourself to learn new things, push into new areas, say, challenge yourself as a writer, or challenge yourself to build a personal knowledge management system. Challenge is good, but confusion is bad. Confusion means there's some aspect of the student experience that isn't clear. We haven't communicated expectations clearly. We haven't shared materials in a timely manner, something like that. So my job is to make sure students are challenged by the course material, but never confused by the structure of the course.
I love that. That is very profound, and I'm sure a lot of people will find this very, very helpful. So now that you have joined Virtually's podcast, Reshaping Education, as a co-host, what inspired you to get involved with this project, and what are you hoping to contribute to it?
Ish and I were on Clubhouse early this year. Clubhouse was new and exciting, and we hopped on an episode with a few other people, had a lot of fun. So I just kept coming to these Clubhouse shows, and before long, Ish and I were co-hosting the Clubhouse show. And I guess the why is that it's just a budding industry. It's a fascinating industry. Obviously, education broadly and online education specifically are transforming at a breakneck pace. So we were just having fun interviewing people on this Clubhouse show each week, learning from people who are building CBCs, but also people who are Michael B. Horn and Ryan Craig, who are these writers who write all about the education landscape. It was just fascinating each week to do research and to talk to these people. So we just kept doing that, and then kind of went from Clubhouse back to the podcast. But that's how we got here. We just sort of never stopped, and I'm excited to. Ish and I have different perspectives on the online education space, but I think they're both valuable, right? Because we're both in it, in the trenches daily, working in this changing education landscape. And I think we have a very interesting sort of mix of perspectives where we can bring in guests and interview them. That's fine. But what I'm most excited for are Ish and I just going deep dives, the two of us, on certain topics, and just understanding, okay, what does the history of online education look like? What are trends we can identify? So it's just sort of in real time through conversation, breaking down how things are changing. I think we just find it interesting ourselves, and hopefully people listening find it interesting too.
Yes, very exciting. The insights, all the insights that you'll have to share. Can't wait for that. Now, the last question I have for you, would be, what's your biggest advice for either aspiring cohort-based course creators or those who are in the trenches and who may need a little bit of encouragement or inspiration?
Yeah, okay, interesting question. So maybe two things. So first of all, a piece of advice is that you cannot overstate the importance of having an audience to launch a course. So this is something where I work with David and Tiago, who absolute credit goes to them, have built large audiences, or large enough such that we can market and sell our courses. I think that's such an important ingredient to selling a course. So that's a piece of advice which could be viewed as discouraging. But on the other hand, I will say a cohort-based course does not have to be 1,000 people or 500 people, right? If you look at the history of building a second brain, long before I was involved, Tiago started in 2016. He had 30 students. It was, I don't know what he charged, but it was pretty cheap. I know it was less than $500, and had a lot of success just at that very small scale. And he stuck with it. And here we are 4 or 5 years later, have students from 80 countries. It's great, but it started small. So even though the audience component is important, it doesn't have to start with this massive size. You can start small and grow over time. It just takes commitment to the process, delivering a great student experience, and just waiting for few years for things to kick into gear. So Audience is important, but it can be done. Just takes persistence and a bit of time. And yeah, I think that would be my advice for somebody who's just starting out.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much, Will, for coming on to share your insights and what excites you about the online education space. So can you let everyone know how to connect with you? And if you have any upcoming announcements or projects you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So Twitter's the best way, Will_Mannon. Really right now focused on reshaping education. Got a few other things I'll be publishing on my website. So that's will-mannon.com. So you can always check out that as well.
Excellent. Thank you again.